What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Twin Sons Podcast, episode 68. I'm calling this our emergency episode, and I'll explain why in a second. But I am joined by co-host Josh. Josh, how you doing, buddy?
I am good. I am here for 2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a
Seems
row,
like
baby.
seems like an accomplishment at this point. So
Yeah, I'm impressed. I think everyone else is as well. This is episode 68. As always, we're brought to you by RuneterraCCG.com. Currently, you can build with every single card on their site that is coming out into the game from Rise of the Underworld. So right now, you can go on and start building your decks. I was theory crafting today. They have the deck builder fully updated, so you can check out that and start crafting, getting ready. We are recording on June 29th, the day right before the patch comes out, the big patch. And on top of that, if you want, you can check out a nice review written by Asher reviewing Echo and theory crafting with him. And even before that, I got to jump back in the ring and write an article based around the second variety drop, which was highlighted by the volunteer Elnuck. I think that was the card everyone was freaking out about.
yep,
Yeah, him and the baboon, the boom baboon. People were pretty excited about that one too. I know you were. You're a little Jinx fanboy over there.
I am. I do like the PNZ discard package and giving fuel to the fire. That was one card that I was definitely. At first, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But then I read the other cards. I saw the volunteer Elnuck. I saw people going crazy over him, and then I was like, oh, I really like the Boom Baboon and the one that is basically like a 3-mana Mystic Shot.
Yeah. Line them up. Yeah, that one's interesting.
Yeah,
That builds
yeah,
card.
yeah. It's definitely interesting to see what can come of that one.
Yeah, there's a couple pretty interesting ones. So I actually got to write down a little theory craft with a couple of those cards. So I made a Elnuck all-in deck, not like full-blown memes with counterfeit copies or anything like that, but they revealed the practical
Oh yeah,
perfectionist as well.
I
So
love her.
she's good. She's really good. So I did a little meme deck with that, and then a Victor Heimer full-blown meme deck with Glorious Evolution. So if you're interested in checking any of that out, that's on their site. As always, check them out. But I'm calling this an emergency episode because we are already planning to record in a couple days here with the designer of this set and the entire Shurima block, RiotGmajor. We've had him on twice already. He's super nice, super fun to talk to. Josh actually hasn't gotten to talk to him yet, but I believe this week he will. So
I will.
Josh will be going 2 times in 1 week. That's how he's upping himself.
Yes, I need to catch up. I need to talk to a dev because I haven't talked to one in like 3 months. Since the last time that we
Yeah,
had Sean Main on, so it was when
6 months.
it's been 6 months.
Right? Yeah, right. He's the last set of Targon. Yeah.
Wow,
Yep.
it's a little sad.
It's almost sad. Yeah, we haven't had one on in a while. So, well, we had G Major on twice, but so yeah, he'll be back, and we'll be talking to him all about all of the cards from this set. Also, getting his feedback on how he thought Guardians of the Ancient went. Just now that the full picture is here, it should be a fun episode because we'll be actually able to talk about the entire. This is what Shurima was designed to be. Now, there's no
What P and
expansion.
Z was designed to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Now PNZ's coming full fruition. Echo looks bonkers. We're not going to talk about Echo tonight because we're going to fully talk about him on Thursday when we're recording. So that episode should be out this Friday. But tonight there is a surprising 47 balance changes coming to the game tomorrow. I'm smiling saying it. It's insane.
Yeah,
47.
it's crazy. Not even what's crazy is none of Mikey's predictions are even in that 47. So
He couldn't even get 1 out of 47 this time around. Just savage. Yeah, so normally they don't release a balance patch with any, or I'm sorry, a release patch with any balance. Typically, they'll do 1 or 2 cards max. They haven't done anything like this. It's been, there's been a ton of feedback. Riot over Geddes has been on Reddit and trying to wither the storm. People have been very upset at just, stale metagame, stale deck building, and all that. And, like the seasonal tournament just finished, and the meta was actually it was a great tournament meta. But it was, even the guy who won Duckling, who's, a good guy, he brought a really, really unique lineup. He just banned Roselia every single game. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what I think I just messed up Azir Aurelia, but I said something weird. But yeah, so I mean, it's actually not a terrible tournament meta. It's just the ladder meta has been pretty stale. So they said they're gonna have a bigger update. I don't think anyone was expecting 47 cards.
on Twitter, I saw like people voting on like north or south of 10. I saw some people going up to 20. Some people are like, oh, if there's 20, I'll be happy. And then 47 pops
47.
up, and it's like, oh, it's like a whole new game.
Yeah, so 47, yeah, and in chat, Eldest talking 47 cards. So 47 balance changes. Should be about 60 cards coming out in this new set, but 47 balance changes alongside of the new set, which is just absolutely massive. It's a crazy one. And we're going to go through all of them, including what Cruisin is saying in chat right now. Mr. Slotbot himself even has an update. So it's exciting. So we're going to jump over between the patch notes and this, and we're just going to dive right in because we have 47 freaking balance changes to talk about. But you know what? We'll take one tiny step back first. Josh, how do you feel about just on the very essence of it? How do you feel about such a massive change as new cards are coming out? Are you happy about it or sad about it?
I kind of love it. It kind of gives so from if I was looking at it at a competitive look, like someone that just won a couple tournaments, it might be like, oh, this kind of blows because
Yeah.
I was doing really well in this and now everything's changing. But in terms of like semi-casual, semi-trying to climb the ladder, semi-trying to just have fun building decks, it's amazing because it's if you're getting 60 new cards, you're getting 47 changes. There's just a bunch more to experiment with, a bunch more to pull from. Strengths and new archetypes. Maybe like buffs, that many buffs and nerfs could even open up new cards to even
Yeah.
other archetypes that are already present or old ones that haven't been in the scene for a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting to see.
Yeah, I've been, crying. Cruisin and I had a nice roast episode going the one week where we were just kind of roasting the devs a little bit, just because I haven't been playing much at all. I've been playing Lab of Legends, and that's pretty much it. So I've been focused on just that. Really, haven't even touched that in a week. I just haven't had any interest in deck build. I feel I've gone over this a ton of times. So I love it, and I love it in the sense that if the new stuff that's coming out isn't that strong, this will make it like a wild west for a little bit, and the new stuff can actually shine for at least a couple weeks before things settle back down. But there's not like anything now going in tomorrow. Like nothing is just like, all right, this is the best deck, right? And before we've already had that. Like when Shurima got released, TF was the best deck. It was the best deck day one. Still, nothing new of Shurima stopped that. Now it's like, all the big decks got hit. So I'll jump over and show you what we're looking at. So the patch right here is showing this video off, and you scroll down a little bit, and they're talking about the new cards, new keyword. You also have new challenges coming, which is cool. And then they talk about these card updates real quick. And essentially, Josh, they're just covering the philosophy of the game a little bit. They're trying to target top decks, considering what's coming up next, which only they know. Focusing on region identities because some regions started to slip away from the region identity. I think the biggest one that slipped away is Targon because Targon's just too good at every freaking thing. So it's just, what is its identity? It's just the best. And then also just having all regions be able to perform. So this is the reasoning they gave for this patch notes. Typically they would write next to every single card why they buffed this card, why they nerfed this card. They didn't do that this time. There's just 47. It'd be 1,000 words, and poor, whoever's writing this article actually would have to, break their hand to type up that many words. So, are you okay with this as far as like, their overall premise? And one thing to add too is that Ruben Zoo came back and he actually took the lead of this patch, which he hasn't in quite a few, along with Deadbolt, and they are actually. I'm trying to remember Deadbolt. I know his real name is Alex, but he it's like Deadbolt Dolpris. I forget the exact his Riot name, but Alex he led it, and Ruben Zoo made all the changes. They're actually hosting a Twitch stream on Ruben Zoo's Twitch on Saturday, so they're working overtime on Saturday, hosting a stream going over this entire patch. So if you haven't heard that, you definitely want to check that out on Saturday. But Josh, as far as do you think that's open enough communication?
Yeah, I mean, for what people are saying, they've always been open, but I know a lot of people were upset with the last couple patches,
Yeah.
and now coming out and giving an explanation, even having the devs come out and talk on a stream. I think it is very good to just be open about it, why they wanted to do these things. It kind of makes people have the little warm and fuzzy that they are being heard. A ton of people since Targon's release, or full release, I should say, have been talking about nerfing Targon. Even if it doesn't have the highest win rate or anything, everyone's just saying, it's too good at everything, just like you said.
Yeah.
Giving reasons to target the top. I was really surprised they put Draven in there. Draven's been secretly up at the top for months on
Yeah.
months. It's kind of like how TF was just on top in just multiple decks, but Draven literally had 2 decks that were
Yeah.
consistently there. So I think it's good to see. It's like it gives you like they are paying attention. They are looking to move forward, meta wise and region wise. So I did like this.
Yeah. It feels great that they say they want to hit every top deck, not just like, all right, well, previously if you do just hit like just the top deck, the one thing that was holding back now is, and it's typically like a control deck. Now that control deck can just take over. So it's nice that they hit everything a bit. My favorite sentence in the entire patch notes is this. Specifically, we wanted to buff at least one champion in each region and ensure all regions had at least 3 cards receive a buff. I think that's incredible. That alone shows you the vastness that they're going for with this patch. They want, every champion get a buff, and all of them get 3 buffs as well. So it's just a ton of cards that are getting changed. Nerfs are important, but buffs to cards that aren't, that playable. And they're even taking some stuff that's really meme status and making it like, okay, now it's tier 2. And then they're taking some tier 2 stuff and being like, okay, now it's tier 1.5. And that's perfect. Like, that's exactly what you need, because right now that gap between 1 and 2 is just massive. And I think they're closing the gap up top, nerfing some things, and then moving the other stuff up a little bit. And, we just heard from Dovigenis before that, the token, they don't want to just fill a patch with a bunch of token buffs. But, like, listen, people love this type of stuff. I love, like, Rasha got buffed. Spoiler alert, we're going through the whole patch. Everyone should know the patch when you're listening. But it's like, that's such a random buff pulled out of left field. The Mage Seeker got buffed. And, like, I love that type of stuff. He's actually really interesting now. We'll talk about him, so. And, yeah, great point, Daimo. They did not hit Lee Sin Zoe. That is definitely one that is going to have to be watched out for now. They slightly hit it, because some Invoke stuff it's touched, like the Fangs and also the Serpent. But, yeah, Ionia got a lot of buffs as well, so... So, Josh, let's dive in here. First one up is Misfortune, and we'll take, we won't go super hard into each one of these so we can keep it under like an hour. But Misfortune is getting Overwhelm back. They took it away not that long ago, and they're bringing it back. Thoughts, Josh?
Yeah. With how many ways there are to get free attacks in Rally now, I'm hoping that this gives the strength for Misfortune to be in another region besides just Demacia. The Scouts was super strong at one time, so they took Overwhelm away.
Yeah.
But now there's rallies in PNZ, there's rallies in Ionia, there's rallies in almost every region. I guess like five of the regions have rallies.
Yep.
So I'm hoping, we can start to see Misfortune in a more diverse area than Demacia.
Yeah, it definitely worked in the time where it did tone her back a little bit. We do have to remember, like, Make It Rain got nerfed, which technically slightly nerfed her because it's her champion spell. So when you draw a second one, it was kind of 3-cost one wasn't the best. But this one definitely hurt a little bit more. You don't always level MF, but, like, it really did help her just close out the game just a little bit more when she did level. So I'm glad to see her have it back in general. I think it's a solid change, and that is Bilgewater's buff. This next one I think was pretty important here. We have Jarvan's buff. Jarvan is going from having to have 4 allies survive strikes from enemy blockers to having to have 3. Jarvan already got a +1/+1 buff. Now he's getting this buff to make him even easier to level. He actually looks really good right now on paper.
Yeah, he has a lot going for him. Yeah, if there's a deck that could figure out how to like finish like the attack that he gets on, or even turn 8 after, or whatever, turn 7, turn 9. I think he's in a really good spot. He should be leveling, basically coming out of your hands. And when he's on the board, he's definitely scary. His stat line's scary. And now he levels up that much quicker. Or at least should be leveling up on curve. So.
Yeah, we kind of all thought he was going to be really easy to level up, but it turns out he wasn't all that easy to level up, just in the decks, at least in the decks that he's seen so far. Maybe there's a deck that does it a lot easier. But a lot of times you don't have a whole lot of allies surviving. You have to do a lot of barriers, or they can just not block, or anything can happen, or your attacker can die. But only having to have 3, any levels while he's in your deck, it's not like he has to see this either. Like, he should be able to level up pretty consistently, and getting that Cataclysm every turn now, online, even earlier, is going to be pretty nasty. This next one is probably the weakest buff across the board. I would say this is Trindamere level 2 has gained tough. This feels like they were like, we need to add a buff to one for your champion. Let's give Trind 2 tough. I mean, like, yeah, sure, he should have tough, right?
I mean, look at him. He has a bunch of arrows in it. He's raging. Like he probably should have tough. He's living in ice with no shirt. You
Yep.
know, maybe
I
level 1 should have tough.
He's tough. He looks tough to me. Yeah, they only give to level
Thraz
2.
Trend should have tough. Do you see that card art?
He doesn't need a shirt, Thrasnos, because he
That's
has his
exactly,
beautiful skin.
and it's tough. That's why he doesn't have a shirt on.
Yeah, but back to actually talking about cards. Yeah, this doesn't seem all that important, but I mean, there's going to be one or two situations where, yep, you have to block something with 9 health and now you live, or you just have 1 extra health here and there, and sure, but realistically, it's probably the least impactful change on this. I would say at least one of the least impactful. We're going through these a little quick because, again, there's 47 of them. Next up, we have Karma going down to a 5 cost. She got pushed to a 6 originally, and then she got brought now back down to 5. I'm sure Josh is happy. Josh, you happy about this?
So it's weird.
Yeah.
When she was 5, I hated her. When she was 6, I experimented with her. Now I'm scared.
Yeah.
Karma is on that level of if the game is slow enough, she could be the best champ in the game.
Yeah.
If it's fast, she doesn't do too much. But now, at her being 5 costs, you can get a little bit more value out of her.
The turn you play her, yeah.
Yeah, when you play her, and if you're waiting till turn 10, it's like you could do that and something else. That's a 1 extra mana.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. So this buff, or this revert, I guess you call it,
Yeah.
does scare me a little bit just because of how strong she was before it. Obviously, a lot more cards are out,
Yeah.
but that also means more cards for her to exploit. So
Yeah, that's what I actually am. I'm writing an article now about the 5 most impactful changes, and I did put this one on it because there are so many more spells in the game now. So you just go back and now you're looking at Karma again. You're like, wow, what else? What else can I double at this point, right? And that list is massive compared to what it was when she was out. The original nerf to 6 mana, we didn't think was going to be all that impactful, but she did stop seeing a lot of play. There's probably other things that go in with that, like just kind of how much actually faster the game got. I mean, the game got so much faster over the last few months, and Targon came out and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is a nice way to be like, hey, guys, you remember Karma? And then maybe slow the game down a little bit because some people are going to be playing Karma. I don't know. We're going to get to some... we just have 1 nerf for now. I thought they put them all in a row. But this is one of 4 nerfs that hit Azir Aurelia. So if you are listening or watching and you are very frustrated with Azir Aurelia, they did receive 4 nerfs. They aren't all massive, but it was 4 of them. The first one is just backing up the level up condition of Aurelia. So she needs to have 14 plus allies attack. This maybe will push her back by a turn for level up, and that's probably it. But that's still important in some manner. Are you okay with this initial buff, Josh? Or this initial nerf here?
yeah, so Azir Aurelia, basically they made it uninteractable just because they would win so quickly.
Yeah.
Now pushing this back a turn, it stops the dumb, just nonsense that Azir Aurelia caused when Aurelia is leveled up, and they could just like switch where the damage is. They could do all this nonsense. So yeah, I do like this. It slows them down a turn. Well, at least I mean,
Hopefully,
with
right,
the
yeah.
multiple nerfs combined, it definitely slows them down at least a turn or two. But this, if Aurelia is the champ that they pull, it slows her down at least, and she can't go nuts as quickly. So.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm skipping a few here to go down to Azir's because it's part of the conversation. They also just backed up his level up condition, so he's back up to a 13 instead of a 10, which I believe is relatively important as well. I think just kind of echoing the same exact reasons Josh just said. If it just slows down everything by 1 turn, it's actually really important. And especially if it's between both champs, right? Like, if they just hit 1 and they still just see Azir some games, but you push both of them back a little bit and it feels okay. They're not at all impossible to level up. They're still very easy champions to level up. You're still going to attack with 14 units over the game, and you're damn sure going to summon 13 units. You're going to summon a lot more than that, but I just think that both of those are pretty fine things. So we'll move on from those two for now, and we'll get back to some Irelia nerfing discussion or Azir Irelia nerfing discussions in a second. But Riven actually got a buff, and it is essentially it's just when I'm summoned, if you have the attack token, you get a reforge. So previously, she wouldn't actually get her own reforge if you summoned her and you already had the attack token. She had to see the attack token be gained. So this is actually pretty nice because it's just, Riven hasn't been overpowered or anything like that, anywhere near that. So it's just a nice little, okay, she gets an extra, blade token for now, and she gets it on curve if you're attacking on turn 3. Because before it's like you wanted to attack on turn 4, and it sucked because you went to play Riven, then get your token. But now, odds or evens, she's actually pretty useful on 3. Because either way, you're going to get your token when it comes to turn 4, or you're going to get it the turn you play her. So this is a solid buff for Riven.
It's very similar to the Victor buff.
Yeah.
That they did. I mean, it's obviously a little different because you need the attack token when she's summoned. But yeah, it just lets her get online a little bit quicker and more consistently. So.
Yep. Yeah, and
yeah.
She came out into like a Targon meta pretty much too, and it kind of hurt because Hush was still pretty big and things like that. So it was definitely hard for her to get going, but I think she's something that you can really revisit, and I think there's a couple buffs in here that help do that, including obviously the buff to her. We got the Donger up next, Josh. The Donger himself, he has been played with a ton. He's had his turrets get changed a bunch. He's had his spells get changed a bunch. But this is a straight up +1/+1 buff, helping his survivability, not changing how the turrets work, so it might not give him all of that much play, but it is changing how much damage he can take and even how much he can block and deal damage back a little bit. It's a good buff.
Yeah, I mean, anything. So it's like he's never attacking,
Right.
unless it's like 100%. They're not blocking. Like unless you have a challenger, 100% not blocking.
Right.
It does help. He doesn't get killed by Get Excited. He doesn't get killed by anything that does 3 or more damage.
Yeah.
So I mean, any bit of survivability will help him. I don't know if it increases his like. Like you said, his turrets still do the same thing. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how this one goes.
Yeah, it's not like a groundbreaking buff, but like you said, any survivability buff is helpful. And speaking of survivability buffs, we have Hecarim up next, who just gets a +1 health. And also, just speaking of champions who've been changed an insane amount of times, this is Hecarim. He has been changed so many different times. His Spectral Riders have done so many, or have had different stats multiple times, and his level up has changed. His stats have changed. I think his cost even changed. So he's all over the place. Hecarim is one of my favorite. He is my favorite champion in League of Legends, and he's one of my favorite to play in Runeterra. And I already said I'm playing Echo Hecarim day 1 because of the stupid ephemeral spell. So I'm super excited. But this is actually kind of big for a 6-drop. Having a 5/5 body kind of sucked sometimes because a lot of 5-drops have 5 attack, but not a lot of 5-drops have 6 attack. So this actually does help him survive at least. And you're not getting a damage buff here, but just if you can survive and then they have to remove him and then you have to get your second one online, it actually does help a decent amount.
Yeah, the one of the biggest problems that I have with Garen and Hecarim is that when you go to attack, they pretty much die just because of when they're coming out and what they are facing against defense-wise. Now that, like you said, a lot of 5-drops have that 5 attack cost, but now it's like if you're going into Sivir, or you're going into LeBlanc, or you're going into any other of those 5-drops in the game, he could actually survive if he's blocking. So it's like most likely you're hoping it's like maybe they could the blockers will switch because they know that Hecarim's going to survive anyway, so you could at least get a second attack and maybe finish the game on turn 8.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that buff. It's pretty solid, and that's the and listen, they said they had the buff of Shadow Isles champion. They picked the right one. Shadow Isles is pretty finicky. They're pretty good, so you don't want to buff them too crazy. So I'm happy that was the buff. They did nerf a really popular champion to pair with Shadow Isles in Nasus. So I was wondering how they were going to nerf Nasus. And you could make him a 1/1, you could make him cost 7, but they decided to actually remove Fearsome from the level 1, which is a pretty interesting nerf. It's just kind of like a weird one where essentially now that this level 1 Nasus is still going to be huge, right? He's still going to be like a 13/13 or whatever, but you can just chump him instead of having to chump him with something that has 3 or more attack, and he's going to kill it because he's a freaking 12/12 or whatever. Then he's going to get spell shield. Now you can just chump him with like a 1/1 if you had to. It's a minuscule nerf, but it's still like an intriguing one, to say the least.
I think it's pretty funny. It's like, oh, right now he's just the puny little dog, and it's
Yeah,
like he needs to
little puppy.
level up to become to become to become scared to become scary and
Yes.
menacing.
He's just a
Um,
puppy right now. That's all.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's good with Nasus. It's like he was really good at just coming out turn 6, already being big. You need it to use more than just a chump if he like before he leveled up.
Yeah.
So it really ate into your tempo. And then obviously their atrocity's still there. So
Exactly.
uh, I think it's overall pretty healthy. And it's a weird nerf, but I think it makes sense just so it's like Nasus isn't coming out and just being he's already huge stat line, and then you're like giving this other stipulation of,
Yeah.
oh, you need to use more than a chump blocker. So
They can always nerf more too if they had to make him 7 or what. But I think this is a cool first nerf. The next buff is awesome. I'm a huge fan of this one. Sivir goes from needing 35 damage to level up now to only needing 30. She's already pretty easy to level and one of my favorite champions to play around with. And now she's even easier to level. I think that's a pretty substantial buff. I think it makes reputation like super interesting now. And there's also a lot of, I mean, they got the Treasure Seeker card coming, which lets you summon the 5/2 attacker who's ephemeral, which will give you a proc for reputation. And there's a couple other reputation buffs we're going to get to, but I think that's a pretty big buff.
yeah, I actually think that reducing by 5 damage makes it so that you're not glued to reputation with Noxus per
Yeah,
se. So like 35 damage if you had, a bunch of your 5 attack minions, you could get it with uh it wasn't like impossible, and it's not like it was manageable, but it wasn't like super easy.
yeah,
Now that it's 30, it's like you only need 6 attacks of 5, or if you maybe you could get some spells that do damage in there as well now, and get it like at the same speed that the 35 did, but in a
yeah,
different manner.
right.
So
She's really interesting too, because and like I was saying, she could level on her first attack, and it's true. She's very interesting because when she levels, she flips, and then her keywords will go to the all of your attacking champions, so she can help like down the line. So if this not only if it pushes it forward a turn for leveling, because she actually needs to be looked at on the next level. She needs to be looked at which strike she's going to level up on, because that can matter. So if something strikes, then she strikes and she levels here, then everything else that strikes after will actually give you quick attack and spell shield on those, which is nice. So it's like super interesting because her leveling it really is dependent on like the exact moment she levels when you have the attack token at least. So I think it's a really solid buff. I'm surprised they didn't go down to like 32 first, but I love that they just jumped right to 30. And it's another Shurima champion seeing, I mean, so they touched Azir, Nasus, Sivir, and on top of that, they also added a change to Talia. This is something I've been dying for. I've been asking. I think we've talked about this on the cast, Josh. Now you don't need a landmark to trigger the 3 stone attacks. She just has that now. Thank God. I mean, it was such a. You already have to build landmarks around. She is built to use landmarks that have countdowns. She's best with landmarks that have countdowns most of the time, and or Roiling Sands, and that levels her up really easily. So you won't always have a landmark. So on top of it, like on top of having to build your deck particularly to level this champion up, then you still had to have a freaking landmark out. And even if you don't, even if you have a landmark, you still have to play it before you
yeah.
could attack with her. It just totally screwed things up. So now she has a +1/+1, and she automatically has the 3 things on. She actually looks pretty damn good right now.
Stat wise, and that, yeah, she does. It's unfortunate that she doesn't win games though.
You know what? It's like it's very because we're gonna get to the Watcher nerf as well. Spoiler alert! But like her and Talia or Lissandra, I mean, actually looks like a really solid deck now that she actually has that online all the time. You don't need the Watcher, but you have the Thralls. So like Turbo Thralls actually looks like a really like probably the best Talia deck
Sure.
out there right now. But yeah, she still has the problem of not closing things
Yeah.
out.
It's more like she's a pretty solid 5 drop now.
Yeah.
Looking at her as like, oh, this is going to be like it sucks because like, she doesn't finish games, but you have to build the deck around her.
Mm-hmm.
So like you need to build the deck around her with something to finish games. So like that's where Frozen Thralls is probably the best bet. It has a finisher.
Yeah.
It has a finisher through big bodies or the Watcher.
Yeah.
So th- she's just a really solid 5 drop in that deck now.
She is. We got two more champion buffs, which is insane. We got Tarek going up to a 3-5 instead of a 3-3. He's kind of getting the Shen treatment. There's nothing really to talk about here, so we can kind of just move along. But, I mean, it's a good buff for him. It's just like Shen kind of went through the same thing of just getting a stat rotation around. They kind of let these guys come in a little low, and now they've worked him up. And, I mean, it's solid. Yeah, getting +1 health, again, like we said, is solid. But +1 health is a little bit more important for Aphelios going up back from a 3-2. Do you guys even remember this character, Aphelios? He was everywhere for like a month. He's a 3-3 now again. His weapon still costs 3. Josh, you definitely played a good bit of Aphelios. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, his health definitely helps. He doesn't get taken out by a bunch of random stuff, but he's still going to be super slow because of his weapon change. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know what Aphelios is going to do. I don't know where he finds his place. He's on the borderline of being broken or just terrible.
He is.
So I don't know if the health is the way to go with this. But it's at least a step into making him not absolute garbage.
I'm thinking it might have a decent sized impact. It is weird. They nerfed like him. They nerfed the temple. They nerfed the weapons. Like they did like a ton quickly to him. He was one of those ones where it was like we gotta figure this out right now, and they really hit him hard. But they've worked back the spell. His spell only costs 1 mana now, and now they have him at 3 health still. So he's like definitely more interesting. And I think there's some decent cards out there that are, yeah, quickly in quotation marks. Thank you, Doom Beast. It felt like a long ass month when he was smacking us every time with TF. But yeah, I don't know. I think it actually might matter. I think people have a really like strong affinity for this character, and I think they're gonna try to jam him now.
Yeah, I think so. If the game is slow, he can thrive. So like if
Yeah.
the Karma comes back, if the Aphelios comes back, like if Azir Aurelia is done and not even thought about because of all the nerfs that it's gotten, um,
Yeah.
then the game turns to like that more mid-range, and then if we follow the cycle, it goes from mid-range to control.
Hmm.
So at some point after we get through like the mid-range decks that are dominating, maybe Aphelios finds a spot while the game is nice and slow for him,
It
just because of how much mana he eats up.
it's a really good point. I feel like a lot of the things that were buffed will really help mid range and slow decks. That there's no aggro champs getting buffed here at all. Most of it was mid range champs, and then Karma is also a control, and also Trindamere's he's in like FTR is like his best deck probably. So it's interesting. I do think they're trying to slow the game down a little bit, and I think they continue to do this with this next change, which I think is my favorite of the whole freaking patch, and it's Make It Rain is 2 mana again. I mean, I'm freaking out about this one. Make It Rain's an incredible spell. I think it's pretty much the single combat for Bilgewater. I think it's that important. Like how single combat is the most important spell for Demacia. I'm that hyped about this one.
You could even consider it like the fifth nerf to Azir Aurelia. So
Yeah, that's true.
just all the 1 damage and then like to 3 different targets, it could wipe out one of their attacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, this spell was super strong before. There's been a lot more cards, so it's definitely going to be strong again, just because
Yeah.
of how strong it was before. I think with a lot more cards in the set, it gives us the chance for it to have like not be broken, but not also be like it has the fine line of like, oh, 3 mana is a little too much for what it does. 2 mana makes it very strong, but now we have so many cards and options. I think it'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, I think we're further along the game where it won't feel busted at 2. I think it's so like key to the core of Bilgewater because literally it's like the best plunder enabler they have. I mean, you don't want a main deck warning shot. They took that away from the Yordle already, unless you're running mono Bilge. So it's like you really need a way to hit the Nexus and trigger plunder, or like you can't really play a lot of the plunder cards. And there's a lot of them. They've even added more, and they're good cards. It's just that there's not really the best way to trigger that. And Make It Rain was consistently one of the better ways. You could, if they just have 2 units, you guarantee you're going to hit the Nexus. If they have 3 units, you still have a very high chance to hit the Nexus. And if this with a keg, it's by far the best spell they have to add a keg to. So it's just like you have all the keg cards, all the plunder cards. They're all just feeling worse as soon as this went to 3 mana, and we saw Bilgewater essentially disappear from the meta, other than just, TF was still running around doing TF things, being able to be played in any single region because he was insane. But besides that, like the core of like, all right, Gangplank decks and things like that were all gone, right? You really couldn't play those anymore. So I was excited. Bilgewater keeps getting buffed with the Black Market Merchant going back up to a 2/2. He has the infamous nab keyword that everyone hates so much. Don't worry, Pilfered Goods still costs 3, but the Black Market Merchant has 2 health now. Josh, what do you think?
I think it's good bringing that archetype back. You know, I always I really loved the nab meta. I mean, it's I did really well in that meta, and it caused like really fun
Dude, I love the nab.
play patterns.
It was so fun.
Yeah, everyone hated it, and I'm sitting there like, no, nab is great. Um, and then it got changed, and then it got nerfed, and then it got nerfed again.
Yeah, it did.
So I'm kind of happy to see it coming back. It's not as strong as it once was, especially since you're not taking like top cards. Even though it's just a mental thing with the top or bottom, right? Oh no, unless things are created. Right?
See,
I always
yeah.
forget about that.
Now, whatchamacallit, okay, Cruisen's saying he wants to nab all the Hextite crystals because they go in the bottom
That's
10 cards.
true.
So you just got to like nab 8 cards real quick and you have a good shot at grabbing it.
That's playing Karma, playing
Yeah.
Pilfered Goods, take 6 right off the bat,
Boom.
turn 10.
Done. Yeah, it's a it's cool. I enjoyed the nab mechanic, and it hasn't existed in forever. So why not give him a minor buff? It's not changing, the draw engine at all. They're just giving it an extra health. It didn't need to be a 2/1. It didn't need to die to now make it rain at 2 mana. So it works out
Yeah,
that way.
I'm all for bringing back the old archetypes, even if I hated them or not. I mean, I love nab, so I'm all for it. But there's times where it's like, oh, you see this old deck that used to be like, oh, everyone would play it, and then you just see it get nerfed to the ground, and then it's like, oh, hope it's like I feel bad, and it's like I want to see a diversity of decks. I want to see it back. So
It's really interesting to see what would those old decks look like in today's meta too. And now we actually they can do that. It's a live card game. They can actually do that by reverting nerfs like this and say, okay, what will it look like now, right? You want to see what old Bilgewater looks like against a Azir Aurelia? Here, try it out. And it's just cool to see them get a little bit back. This next one, I've never even played this card, but it's double up. It used to cost 6 mana, now it costs 5. If you're wondering what it does, it's deal 2 to an enemy. If it kills it, deal 4 to the Nexus. It's actually interesting at 5 mana. A little bit.
Mana, yeah.
I mean, 6 mana was rough.
To possibly deal a total of 6. It'd be awesome. It's like if you could do 3 and 3. I feel like 3 is just like a sweet spot of being able to kill
Yeah.
and getting around some combat tricks. It's like at 2, I feel like it's a little hard to kill things.
And if you don't get the kill, right? If they do any combat trick, right? Any sharp sight, troll chant, even deny, or anything like that, you lose 4 Nexus damage. So it's just so much riskier. If you're playing like a burn deck, you probably already have Noxus in your list. So just run like Decimate at that point. This doesn't do a whole lot. It's just like, I don't know. I still probably won't see play, but why not buff a card that hasn't seen any play, right?
Yeah. Drildis made a pretty good point. 2 damage with realistically needing a keg backup.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that's the point of keeping it at 2. The assumption that there will be a keg, so then you can, or a keg or 2, so you possibly get it to 3 or 4 to an enemy to kill. I still, if you're looking at like not relying on kegs, I think it would be cool if it was a 3/3.
Yeah.
And then if you do 4, it's like, oh, you're guaranteeing a kill basically if you have a keg and you do 4 to the Nexus. I feel like it would just make it a more viable card because at 5 cost I still don't find it viable.
Yeah, 5 cost it's still probably not. 6 cost it definitely wasn't. We knew that already. So they'll step it one at a time. But yeah, it was a pretty weird card. Slotbot.
Can you imagine doing this on turn like 6? It's like not possible.
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
You just lose all tempo.
Exactly. But speaking of tempo, dude, the Slotbot.
The
The Slotbot. Cruisen's been waiting this whole time to talk about the Slotbot. He's the crazy bot who has a round start effect. He gets +1 health for each card you drew the previous round, and then you shuffle his stats up, which is like crazy. Well, now he does that effect on summon. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit scared of, like, I'm serious. This is pretty big. Beyond all the memes. Realistically, yeah, you probably only drew one card, but maybe you drew two, right? Maybe you drew two cards on turn two. You play the slot bot, right? And then he comes down, and he's just like, boom, now I'm a 1/6, and you shuffle his stats right there. So now you have 7 stats on a 3 drop. I guess that's average for a 3 drop, because now he's like a 4/3 or something. All right, I'm not that scared anymore. Slot bot sucks. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it does make him viable on turn three in that scenario that you said.
Yes.
Because like if he comes out a 3/4 or a 4/3 turn three, that I mean that's the stat line you want
Yeah.
for a 3 drop. So I think it's good making him viable for a curve
Yeah.
and then to build on. Because like it back like before this, if you played him on turn three, it's like a 1/4 isn't doing much for you. But
No, no.
now a 4/3 or a possible like 3/4 in the correct scenario, he's definitely viable and can continue to um, get better as the game goes on, or at least grow as the game goes on.
He's a meme card, but a lot of people are excited about it, so I'll join the slot bot hype train. Next, we have Confront. We're moving on to Demacia. This is just grant an ally challenger. It's Shyvana's spell. It used to cost 3. It costs 2. Josh, I'm going to move along. I mean, I think this is a pretty standard one.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to it. I mean, it's a buff to Shyvana again.
It is a buff to Shyvana, and it's just it's an interesting card. Probably don't need it with all the other ways to get challenger and vulnerable. But this next one's more interesting to me. It's the Mage Seeker Inciter is a 4/4 instead of a 4/3. Remember, this is if you've casted a 6+ spell, he gets +2/+2. So he comes down at a 6/6 for 4 now. That's good stats.
Yeah. Yeah, that 6/6 for 4, he could survive pretty much any trade at turn 4,
Yeah.
and he could trade well. So
Yeah, I mean, he works.
we only saw the only play I've ever seen is in a Shenlux or
Yeah.
Shucks, whatever you want.
Yeah, oh
That was
shucks.
forever ago at this point.
Yeah, you
So
always drop Remembrance on 3 and then Inciter on 6 or on 4. I mean, he's a 6/6 now, and you have a Remembrance unit. It's a big turn 4. It's a big board there. It could be a buff to like Karma Lux. We saw Karma get buffed. We're gonna see a lot of Ionia buffs still to come, so it's solid buff. But I think the most interesting Demacia buff is actually this Laurent Bladekeeper, who is a play grant an ally +2/+2. He was a 2/3. He's now a 3/3. Swim loves this card. He already has abused this card with like using Fiora and Zed and stuff like that. And I thought this card would have gotten more play in general over the course of the game because it does do that. And we already had Fiora to be this monster of I need to not die. There's just better combat tricks in general. But now at a 3/3 who can block fearsomes, who can trade efficiently into some 4 drops and most 3 drops, he's actually kind of interesting. It's 5/5 worth of stats technically on your board for 4 mana now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's just a good body now. He
Yeah.
already. I guess there's been multiple decks where he's shown, he could get you the value that you need.
Yeah.
And I guess with like in the Fiora decks, he just kind of gives Fiora the stats she needs, plus gives her like you a little bit more time to get the mana to let Fiora survive. So
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting one. I'm gonna blast through these next two real quick since we're dragging. We said we're gonna go for like 30 minutes. Already 43. So let's look at these next two real quick. Howling Abyss goes down from a 7 cost to a 6 cost. It's a meme hilarious card, but it's still a decent buff for the card. Ren Shadowblade, which has been completely changed a bunch of times, is now a 4/3 with quick attack instead of a 3. So at a 4 cost, decent stats now. Another nerf to Azir Aurelia, which we'll definitely talk about. I think this is the biggest nerf there. It's the Dancing Droplet loses a tune. It sucks for the decks that like the recall strategy because it's actually a fun strategy to play. Because this thing was so good for those decks, and those decks were totally fair. That being said, it's a huge nerf to Azir Aurelia.
yeah, I kind of hate Azir Aurelia for forcing this nerf.
Yeah.
Um, this card was like super unique and super fun to play with outside of Azir Aurelia. I know that's where it was used the most and used. I just feel like with the attune, there's other places it can go, and um, I hope that this is something that gets reverted in the future.
Yeah, it does suck. I agree with you. I think it sucks that deck forced it because there's so many cool other decks that this could have spawned into. That would have been a cool strategy. I'm going to lump these next two together. We have the Greenblade Lookout, was a 2-1, now he's a 2-2. And we have the Young Witch, who was a 1-1, now is a 1-2. So it's a +1 health buff for both of these Ionia cards, both these Ionia 2-drops in particular. And it's pretty interesting. What do you think about both of those, Josh?
Like Mogwai's dream, right?
He loves the Greenblade Lookout. I called it a meme card in his chat one time, and he was so upset with me.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly, it didn't see any play. I mean, it
No.
was a pretty terrible card. Now it's actually very interesting because it's very similar to like the River Shaper buff. Remember that was now it's a 2-2, a 3-drop that draws a spell. It's very similar to that. Now putting a barrier on this is actually kind of interesting. Not as good as the River Shaper, but interesting. And it doesn't die to just like a Vile Feast. So you don't have to protect it from something stupid. You just have to protect it from strikes most of the time, and then it will give you some value back.
Jarvan meta.
Jarvan meta, baby. Yeah, make Jarvan
Ionia's
cost one
monster.
less, and then
Yeah.
he comes out. And the Young Witch buff's great too. I mean, Young Witch
I
is
like this, yeah.
it helps the Lulu package a decent amount. It's a good buff.
Yeah, I just secretly love playing when she came out. I love playing Lulu. The support, like her thing, it's like you could get very quick high rolls, but then you stop playing against Mikey and you find that the support just isn't that good. Um, but I really like this. She definitely needed more survivability. The support package, because the support is so hard to get off, I feel like they just need to blow like support stats out of the water
Yeah,
um, to really get them to be viable. Because it's like they need to make an impact on one turn,
yeah.
or they just suck. Now maybe with all the rallies, maybe there's some support package besides just like Shen that can make it somewhere.
Yeah, they
Um,
added a lot of rally, and they've added a lot of health to a lot of. They have added, Tarek has gotten more health and attack. Lulu's gotten more attack. This thing has gotten more health. Yeah, they've added a lot to that package.
Yeah, so I mean, I think giving survivability so that maybe I mean, she just needs it just because she died to literally everything.
Exactly.
So I do really enjoy this buff.
Yeah, I think it's great. This next buff I do not enjoy. It is Will of Ionia. If you've heard that in your nightmares, is probably where you did hear it. It's a 4-cost spell again instead of a 5-cost. This is the one buff on this whole thing that I'm iffy about. Everything else that I've read, I'm like, I'm about this. I see where they did it. I like this. This one is terrifying to me. This card dominated mid-range decks. It was just like you said. It was mid-range dominant. Control started to verge out, and then this thing single-handedly put mid-range decks on their ass, and I don't want that to happen again. It's a whole different game now. What do you think? Will it happen again?
So I have a weird relationship with Will of Ionia. The start of the game, I hated Will of Ionia and Atrocity. Literally, those are my two least favorite cards. And then I got to Masters using Lee Sin and Ezreal. And how did I win? I used Will of Ionia a ton. And then it got nerfed, and Lee Sin Ezreal was no longer viable. This I am considering the best buff of the patch, uh, in terms of like competitive viability.
It definitely could be.
Yeah, and I think it definitely will have. So it depends. So it's like if we're mid-range control, then yeah, this card does a ton in those matchups. If we're an aggro, it kind of uses a lot of mana where you kind of don't want too early.
Yeah, maybe the game did speed up enough where Will of Ionia won't be as impactful now.
Yeah,
It's possible.
it definitely is with how many burn decks are viable now, how
Yeah,
many like things like that, especially with Spell Shield now.
for
It could
sure.
definitely block some things, but I do still think Will of Ionia 4 is extremely strong,
Yeah,
especially say like now like Nasus. If he doesn't have Spell Shield on, it's like, oh well,
oh yeah.
uh, it's like he's a high cost, so you could just instantly go back. Anything like that. I just think that this is a really strong buff
Yeah.
or revert.
Yeah, it's a very interesting choice that they made there. This next one I think is a lot more straightforward and awesome buff. Twin Disciplines now only costs 2, but it still gives you either +3 attack or +3 defense or health. I think that's great. I mean, if you just look at all the other 2-cost spells out there, like Sharp Sight, Troll Chant, they just do more now. 2-cost spells just do a lot more than they did back then. And Disciplines felt like a 2-cost spell after they came out, but it was still 3-costed. So this actually is like a good combat trick now.
It makes sense. It's catching up to the power creep, which I
Yeah.
like. I like those buffs, so it makes sense.
I'm gonna lump the next like 4 together, Josh. We got some weird ones here.
Yeah, they are.
We got the Incisive Tactician, who's a 4/5. He's now a 5/5, so he can help with the reputation himself.
Why was he not a 5/5? Like he
He's
has
a freaking
reputation.
8-drop too. How is he not a 5/5?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't even know. Yeah, yeah.
He came
His
in
card,
weak.
his stat line made no sense to me to begin with.
Yeah. Like I said, reputation is looking decent. This is a nice little helper to it. I mean, he should have just been a 5/5, like you said. The City Breaker goes up to a 1 attack, huge buff. We're not even gonna talk about that one. Jay Murdata goes up to a 5/5 instead of a 4/4, so solid buff. Still, you need to put elusive on him now because he doesn't have it, or you need to put some other keyword on him because he doesn't have it. But sure. The freaking Middenstoke Henchman buff that we've all been waiting for has finally made it. Josh, this is actually one of my favorite cards. It is now a 5/4. We'll talk about all 4 of those. Do you have any thoughts for all 4 of those that I didn't cover in my 2 sentences?
No. uh, they all probably will not see play. I know BBG had a time where he was using City Breaker with like the Sejuani gang. What was it? Was it Sejuani decks? I
Swain,
think it was
maybe.
Sejuani.
Sejuani Swain or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I know he played it. Jay Medarda has never seen. He hasn't seen anything. Minstoke Henchman. He still needs the Nexus Drake, so like.
You still have to give him elusive or overwhelm. You have to do something to him. Thrasnos is hyped. Thrasnos is freaking out in chat right now about Middenstoke Henchman. Yeah, I just remember playing you, Josh, and you kept saying Middenstoke, and you would say it like that, and I'd be like tilting.
Yes.
Out of all 4 of those, the Incisive Tactician is actually like a playable card. It has a rally effect. It's actually a solid effect.
Is it playable?
I think anything with rally you have to at least consider playable. This buff doesn't do anything though, really.
I feel like he should just be the orange guy from Bilgewater. He should just be a 6-drop.
Yeah, I mean he's supposed to if you reputation.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was reading Reputation, and then it'd be like when I'm summoned Rally.
Yeah.
Reputation, I call 6. It makes sense. Okay, so maybe he is playable.
He's supposed to be the citrus courier of the Noxus, but yeah, he hasn't hit that. This next one, I know you love and hate this one. You're a big Rummage fan. Rummage now costs 2 mana. I'm doing jumping jacks and cartwheels over here. I'm so hyped about this change. It's also in the article, spoiler alert, coming out, I believe, tomorrow, but I think it's super impactful. I mean, this is clearly, like they said, they were targeting Draven decks, which is discard aggro and Draven Ezreal, but this card saw so much play. I guarantee you had 3 of them in your Ezreal and Lee Sin deck, but also Karma Ezreal, also pretty much any Bilgewater deck, any P&Z deck. It's just like the best draw card, and it's never been looked at, and it's absolutely strong. I'm a huge fan of this nerf. Josh, defend it. Defend.
I can't. With how many free created cards there are now.
Yeah.
It's just way too much value for. It's literally just. You could just get so much just card a hand advantage just because. Oh, I create 2 axes. I create 2 gems. I create.
Yeah.
Anything. Even if you just create 1 card, you're still just getting so much value, and it makes sense because it's just kind of catching up with how much creation there is now. So it's sad, but it probably needs to happen.
Yep.
And if Karma does come back, it at least nerfs Karma PZ a tiny bit.
It does. It does help in that instance. We have one more nerf to Draven Ezreal. It's the Tri-Beam Improbulator. Goes up to 5 mana. It's just
sad about this one too.
Yeah, this one is interesting. I mean, the card did have some really high rolling moments, so I'm okay with it getting the 1 extra cost here. But yeah, it still might see play in that deck. It's pretty solid.
Well, I think if you look at how much value it consistently gets in the Ezreal Draven decks, or just the Draven decks in general, with the cost of the units that it consistently gets, 4 mana is probably just way too low.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 5's probably a lot healthier of a spot. We got one pretty big one here. The Watcher gets changed. It now needs 5 allies to have been summoned that cost 8 more to be costing 0. And also, it obliterates all but 3 non-champion cards from the enemy deck on attack. So it's kind of like Maokai. It won't obliterate your whole deck. Thank you. This is a fantastic change because it was just the worst feel bad. You work all game and then all of a sudden your entire deck gets obliterated. You have to finish the game that turn. And you're probably on defense because it attacked. So you're like, I don't even get to attack again. So it should definitely leave some cards in the deck.
Yeah. One question I have
Yep.
is if Pike turns into his spell and then Watcher attacks,
Yeah.
does that Pike get destroyed?
I don't know.
Or like, is there a possibility that it survives?
I would say, I mean, it transforms into the spell. It says his wording is literally transform into that spell. So I think there is a possibility that he is no longer a champion card at that point because he transforms into a spell. That is a weird interaction that we'll have to go through. I'm going to power through these next couple because they are very minuscule. We have Rasha, which I love. I love Rasha, but it is just a +1/+1 buff, not a cost reduction. Still a solid buff. I think it's a decent 8-drop. If the game's a little bit slower, it'll see play. The Dusk Rider, baby, getting +1 attack. I mean, this is the worst Nightfall card there is. And there's a lot of other Nightfall cards that are a lot better. We can talk about these two, though, Josh. I'll bunch these two in, and we can talk about them together. We have the Escaped Abomination, which is another hit to Nasus Thresh. It loses 1 health here, so it's now a 4/3. It used to be a 4/2. It used to be a 4/4. Got pushed to a 4/3. Now it's a 4/2. And on top of that, Stalking Shadows also really strong in that deck, and Nightfall, and every freaking Shadow Isles deck ever, because Stalking Shadows was bonkers, is now a 3 cost. Thoughts on those two?
So
that one
Escaped Abomination, it definitely does. Escaped Abomination going to a 4/2 definitely helps fight the onslaught of Shadow Isles.
Yeah.
Aggro whenever that seems to always come back in somehow.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, Fearstones, oh, then this, then that, and it just always makes its way. So definitely will make their aggro, their rush, feel a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
Stalking Shadows, I am super sad about. This was one of my favorite cards to use.
Me too.
It makes sense with how many. So like, Doom Beast, just getting a Doom Beast off Stalking Shadows for 2 is absolutely crazy value.
Yep.
And with how many more units that are doing something after they are summoned now, it makes sense for, like, you're just getting way too much value out of just double units. So
you were. I mean, this is like one of my favorite cards in the game. I love Stalking Shadows, and now they have that Fox coming out as well, who like kills an ally and deals 3. That thing's crazy too. But I think this makes it like they'll probably not run 3 Stalking Shadows. I still think you might want to run 1 or 2 if you're a unit heavy deck, though. And I get it costs 3, so it does hurt a lot more. But I still think it's got that much value and closeout potential that you might still want to run 2. But I mean, this was like if you had the right deck building, requirement for this, running X amount of units, you run 3 of these every time. I mean, this card's bonkers. I'm going to power through the next 2 because they are very lame. The Clock Hand is now a 7/7 instead of a 4/7. I'm saying very lame. It's not really all that lame. This is a pretty big buff. It reminds me a lot of the Eclipse Dragon buff. Remember that one, Josh? Where he was a weak statted unit. He went up. This thing just didn't really do a whole lot. Definitely needed a buff. And the next one is Razz Bloodmane, which is a really fun card to play with. Just went up to a 7/7. Still the same attack ability. She's actually really good. It's just like an awkward card. But both of those are just solid buffs to 2 epic cards in Shurima that weren't really seeing any play.
Yeah, the Clock Hand being a 4/7, I was super confused about in the beginning. It's like these units that have large stats but with no keywords. So it's like these units, they put out units that have like very underwhelming stats. But then they don't give them a keyword, so the underwhelming stats don't really make sense. It's like just chump blockers could just negate the big stats. So like, just give them the big stats.
Yeah.
He's an 8-drop. He should be closing out the game if that's what he's meant to be. So like a 4/7. I think maybe even on the cast I said like I don't understand the stat line.
You should at least be able to compete. That's a good point. Doom Beast in chat is saying that he did see some play in Turbo Thralls, which does make sense. He does create the 2 instant sentries, which have a decent ability for those. It's just like, I don't know. He just took up a board space after he got played at 4/7, I suppose, and he still will at 7/7 because he doesn't have Overwhelm. But like at least now he can trade into some things, right? He's coming out on turn 8. He could barely trade into anything, so. Definitely a helpful one. And Bloodmane's really cool. The next one's important, though. We got Dunekeeper here going from a 2/1 to a 1/2. Dude, just put this thing in a 1/1. It didn't need the extra health. Like, it's still summoning a Sand Soldier. But this is the 4th technical nerf to Zerarelia because it is reducing this thing's damage output. I don't know why their thought process said we need to give this thing an extra health. It still would be good as a 1/1, but I mean now it's still solid as a 1/2.
I guess it gives the defender like the option of, okay, do I block the Sand Soldier to block more damage, or do I block the Dune Keeper to take him off?
Right.
I guess it gives the person defending that option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why he's a 1/2 either. I mean, he's still good. I guess that's a good thing.
Hmm.
They didn't. I mean, I guess he would still be good as a 1/1 as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
He still is good. We got a couple things to finish it up with, and here we are. We have the Mountain Sojourners. It's a 5-drop 4/5. Was a 2/5. Like I said, now it's a 4/5. On top of that, the Sun Guardian also got a +1 health buff. Both very minor things, but again, we were just discussing all the support cards, right? Slowly getting
yes.
increases, and that's a if 2 attack is pretty big for that. Now it used to just attack and it'd be all the way to the left, of course, buffing your entire board, and we only have 2 attacks, so they could just chump it relatively easily. But now 4/5 is actually like slightly threatening with a big ability as well. Support's gonna one day be good. I mean, they have buffed it so much. Eventually, we're gonna get to a point where the deck's decent, at least.
You hope.
Probably not. And some Guardian is like the worst Daybreak card in the game, so why not give it a +1 health buff? Sure. Josh, it finally happened, buddy.
Yes, your
My
prediction from so long ago.
Like as soon as like the first patch came after Targon, I was like, they're gonna nerf Star Shaping. It can't heal for 5. It just can't. It should heal for 3 or 4, or should cost 6. And now it only heals for 4. So they did the most minor buff possible. The card is still incredible. It still summons, or it still gives you a 7 or more Celestial from the Invoke, and it heals you for 4 your Nexus instead of 5. I mean, this card has been on the nerf block. It had to be on the nerf watch list forever.
Yeah, 5 health was pretty devastating.
It was.
Like, it was crazy. A fourth of your health. I know, like a fifth of your health is even a lot. Just that a card at burst speed could just do that. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there have been times where I've gone against Targon and like they just heal and heal, and I lose by like 1 or 2 health
Yeah.
just because they healed so much. So maybe we'll end up seeing like if you're playing a burn or you're playing mid range, you will if you win by 1 damage, know that it was because of this nerf, and I'm sure you will see it. So
Oh, you definitely will. Like you said, it's 5% of their Nexus, just that 1 health. So it's still it's substantial. I mean, 1 health is a decent amount. So it will matter for sure. This card had to have gotten nerfed. I mean, it literally. I feel like this is the card from Targon that has been waiting to get nerfed since it came out. So yeah, I nailed it. I was just 6 months early, or 8 months, or 10 months, however long it's
six
been now.
months and probably about like 30 card
Yep.
changes.
But now we got it. The next one, I keep getting that one instead. The next one here, we have the Serpent. It goes down to a 1/1, which is a nerf to the lower cost of the Invoke package, which is technically a nerf to like Spacey Sketcher, Zoe, and also the Fangs, who also got himself nerfed as well. The Fangs was bonkers. The Fangs was such a good card. Immediately made the Daybreak 5/4 like a lot less playable because the Fangs was so much better. Um,
Yeah.
but now that the Daybreak card, if you're playing Daybreak, you were using it, but now that card actually might be just an interesting option if you need to heal. But both of these combined do hurt the lower cost end of Targon. I mean, they're both pretty substantial nerfs.
Yeah, the Serpent was one of my favorite, but that was mainly because I was running my Zoe Jinx jank, and
Starry
the
Psychos,
Serpent,
dude.
yes, the Starry Psychos, and the Serpent really allowed me to exploit early units, and I could just swarm really quickly,
Yeah.
and just do a crap ton of damage. It does make sense though, a 0 cost 2/1 with Challenger. There's not even 1 costs that are that good, or 1 drops that are that good.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it makes sense. He can only trade or, enable bigger attacks now. So the Fangs, yeah, I think that thing definitely needed to be touched. That card with, yeah, it was so frustrating.
Yeah. 4-drop, 3 attack, could block fearsome units, could life steal, and gave you card advantage. Was really solid. Overall, Josh, I'll close out with a couple words, but I want to let you get your last words in here. Positive, negative. How do you feel about the patch? Best in a while. What do you think?
It is really refreshing. seeing all these changes, seeing cars that you might have even forgotten the name of, you forgot their art because you haven't seen them in so long. I think it feels really good. They did a decent amount of nerfing stuff that has been terrorizing the meta and buffing stuff that. So like Ionia, they got a bunch of substantial buffs that definitely people are saying Ionia is dead. Now that Aurelia is back, it kind of gives you the facade that
Yeah.
Ionia is still there, but a lot of its base cards are just butt cheeks. So now this
Yeah.
at least brings that region back. Hopefully this brings Bilgewater back with Make It Rain and Misfortune. So I am super pleased, and I am ready to see what's. I just ready to deck build basically.
Yep. I'm with you. I think it's the best patch in a while. I think it's going to help the new card shine very well because it's going to be a little bit of Wild West situation like we talked about. And yeah, I mean, I think Ionia is the winner of the patch. Bilge maybe comes in second. But yeah, like you said, Ionia got really good buffs across the board. 4 really, really solid buffs. And then Karma, if you add that as well. Really solid buffs. So, guys, if you're interested in checking out any more of our content, including we're doing a giveaway right now on Twitter, it will end tomorrow as soon as the patch goes live. We're doing a giveaway for $7, or we're going to give away 2 if it hits 200 retweets, which it probably has already. It was getting really high right before we started. So we'll be giving away that, and that is in celebration of a couple things. Right here we have 2 new skins for champion skins. We have Echo as like a sandstorm Echo, and then Sand Wraith Pike, both in the game now. On top of that, there's a new board, so if you'd rather buy that, you can do that. There's some card backs on top of new emotes. So we're just celebrating, giving away some stuff at the end. So if you're listening to this in time, you can feel free to check us out on Twitter there. Make sure to check us out on YouTube as well. That helps the most. If you can leave a comment, leave a like, that really helps. And anywhere you're listening, we appreciate you guys listening, and we appreciate you staying tuned. We have a huge episode coming up where we'll be talking to the design lead of all of these cards. If you have questions for the design lead in our Discord, we have a channel, #questions for Gmajor, and you can ask some questions. We'll be screening those heavily. We've gotten some weird ones before, Josh.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, he's the design lead for this. I always tell this joke, but he's the design lead for this set. So if you're going to ask about like balancing or something else, I will not ask that question because he doesn't work on that. So yes, this will be focused on the set that is coming out and all of Shurima in general. So if you have any questions for those, feel free to drop them in our Discord. Any other final words, Josh?
I am going to say I hope that they have been doing experiments on us with these patching, whether it's like not patching enough, patching too much. I'm hoping that every time that they release new cards, they just throw up changes on us because definitely creates an exciting time and can just flip the meta. So
It's going to be a
that
really
is
interesting week of deck building and playing. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. I don't know. I hope hopefully it works out really well. And like you said, it's a test and that the community ends up happy with it. I know the community today was ecstatic.
it's
So
amazing. I think it's unless something comes out and is absolutely busted from now and from tomorrow until the next patch, then it's a success. So
yeah, and what's scary is we actually have the summer release coming up in like 2 weeks, July 14th. So they're releasing a champion. So your guess was Zerath, right?
if it's not Xerath, I mean they faked me out with the name, but it makes sense. The underworld, you got Pike, you got Echo, you got um, Rek'Sai. They all live underneath.
Technically under
Uh,
the sand, under the
yeah,
water. Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. It is
yeah.
called the Ruination of, or it looks like it's the Ruination on the art for that. So I'll guess
Oh,
Viego myself.
yeah,
Um,
you might be right. Xerath just might not be happening.
he's got to happen at some point. They need another Ascended champion. I
I
think.
was thinking just lore wise and being like
Yeah.
Xerath versus Ear, but maybe that's not even lore. I don't even know. I thought it was.
we'll read up and catch up for it.
I'm gonna have to.
All right. Well, I thank you guys for checking out the episode, and we'll see you in like 2 days. So we'll actually have a second episode this week as well. So make sure to check that one out as well. And until next time, deuces.
See ya.